Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to my home library because it's still summer break and it's actually June 30th. So it's the perfect day to film the video and I'm off, so here I am filming at home. Anyway, that was a really long intro just to say that. So let's get into the tag. So the first question, of course, is what is your favorite book so far of 2022? And I'm not gonna count the Nevermore series because technically I finished Hollowpox, which would be in the running, but we're not gonna count that one. In which case, my favorite book was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I also loved the sequel Vengeful, but this one, if I had to pick between the two, it would be this one. This lived up to the hype, guys. I could not believe how good this book was. It's like X-Men, but like if everybody was kind of morally gray or actually just straight up bad, just pretty much straight up bad, and yet you root for the main character anyway. It's so carefully crafted. Each chapter is really short, like even just a few pages on some of these, and it goes back and forth between different points of view, and yet somehow it's so pieced together masterfully, and the storytelling is amazing, the characters are amazing, the writing's amazing, everything is amazing in this book. 5 stars. One of my all-time favorites. I bought this one and the sequel, and the reason why it looks so bad is because I let my husband borrow it and he read it as well and also really enjoyed it. I think he more like gave it like 4 stars, and he read it all in one day. How does he even do that? It's like 400 pages. Anyway, favorite book of the year, highly recommend. The next question is the best sequel you've read this year, and while I would probably obviously say Vengeful, I am not going to use the same answers the whole time if I can help it. So the best sequel I read this year was such a surprise as well, and that was Arm of the Sphinx by Josiah Bancroft. This is the sequel to Sinless Sins, which I did not actually like that much. I gave it like 3 stars. It was fine. I honestly didn't even know if I was gonna pick this one up. It sat on my shelf for a long time. And finally, when I got COVID and I was just sitting there at home for days, I just decided to read it. And oh my gosh, this was so well written. I wouldn't even cared hardly what the plot was because it was just so well planned out. Apparently I like just storytelling in general, and the plot, I mean, not the plot, but the way everything is weaved together, I guess is what it is. And so this one was just so masterfully crafted. It was wonderful, and people say the third one's even better, so I cannot wait to read more from this series. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars, I think I gave it 4.5, but the more I think about it, I probably would give it 5. It's just that the plot is so weird. These books are so weird. You have to be up for some just bizarre, they're just bizarre. So other than that, oh my gosh, this book was so good. So the next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to, and this just came out a few weeks ago, even just maybe 2 weeks ago or something. I actually got it at the library already, so I'm about to read it, and that is The Ballad of Perilous Graves by Alex Jennings. All I know is it's set in another version of New Orleans called NOLA that is like an alternate New Orleans made of magic and music. It's a place of sky trolleys and dead cabs where haints dance the night away and wise women help keep the order. To those from away, NOLA might seem strange, but to Perilous Graves, it's simply home. And that's all I really know about it. I don't actually know the plot, except that it's about music, I think, somewhat. Yeah, he plays the piano, I don't know. 9 songs of power have escaped from the piano that maintains the city's beat, and without them, NOLA will fail. So I guess the main character has to sacrifice everything to save it, but a storm is brewing and the haint of all haints is awake. Oh my gosh, this sounds so good. I'm gonna start this like tomorrow, so because I'm about to finish the book I'm currently reading. I'm so excited. I hope this lives up to the hype because I've seen some just moderate reviews, you know, like 3 stars and stuff on Goodreads, but oh my gosh, it looks so good. It's actually bigger than I expected to, and the pages are really tall. This is gonna take me a while to read this thing. The next question, funny story behind the next question. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I no longer have an answer for this question because I'm so mad. I refuse to pick out another answer just because of how mad I am. I thought that Silverborn, the next Nevermore book by Jessica Townsend, I thought it came out this October. And I wondered why in the world no one was putting it on their list of books to read by the end of the year or like new releases they were excited about. I've been watching a lot of mid-year book freakout tags. No one mentioned this book. And I thought, they just forgot it, or for some reason they're not excited about it, or I don't know why they're not talking about it. So finally, I decided to make sure that the release date was what I thought it was so that I could put it in this video. It's October of next year. It's 2023. I don't know if I can wait that long because I loved Nevermore. I would probably have to reread the other 3 again before the next one comes out because it's going to be so long from now. But I can't believe it, and when I discovered it, I just got very mad. And I'm not going to answer this question because I'm so mad. So it was going to be Silverborn, but it doesn't come out till next year. So there we go. So the next question is the biggest disappointment of the year. I've probably got many answers for this, but there are 3 that really stand out to me as disappointments. 2 more so than the others. One that really stands out to me as a disappointment is Neon Gods by Katie Robert. So this was my second most anticipated book that I put on my list last year at the beginning of the year when I made like, oh, books I'm most excited for, which was Empire the Vampire, also a huge disappointment, and Neon Gods by Katie Robert. So I read this book finally, and it was so bad. The first little bit had some plot, the last little bit had some plot, and then the middle was just like smutty romance nonsense that was so stupid that the plot, oh my gosh, the plot was the only thing that was kind of interesting, but it was so bad, I just can't believe how bad it was. I thought it was going to be a Hades and Persephone retelling, which I mean is what it was supposed to be. It could have been anybody though. It didn't matter that it was Hades and Persephone. This could have been any characters, and you could have just named them whatever and had this plot happen. So I will definitely not continue with the series. In fact, this book is in my giveaway pile, so that's where I'm going to put it back right now. However, there were 2 more books I was disappointed by. I'll do the middle one first. Like, I was not as disappointed in this one as I was the other 2. This is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I'm only really disappointed in this one because I expected it to be more like Nevermore. I loved Nevermore so much that I was just chasing that high again, I guess, and wanted something that was as good. So I'd heard that this was another great middle grade, just as good as Nevermore. It was just meh. It's not that I hated it like Neon Gods. It wasn't like 2 stars or something. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was fine, but it was such a copy of Men in Black, and the pace was way too fast, and it was just kind of silly, you know, I don't know. So I did finish it, but I could have DNF'd it and I would have been fine with it. I will definitely not continue with that series. Then the other book that I was very, very disappointed in and is very, very sad was The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons, which I actually did DNF. I think I read 40% maybe of this book, and it was huge. But this is the sequel to The Ruin of Kings, which I gave 4 stars to and really enjoyed, and I hoped that it got better. But some people I'd heard, like I think it was Becca from Becca and the Books, I think it's her channel, but she said, you know, that the second one wasn't very good, but that she'd heard that the series got so much better, especially once you got to book 3, that books 1 and 2 were more of a setup for the rest of the plot. But then I looked on Goodreads and people said that that's not the case. They said that book 3 is just as bad as book 4, as book 2, if not worse, and that the plot just doesn't make much sense. And honestly, it's so overly convoluted in book 1, but I kind of enjoyed that. This one is more straightforward, without all the overly convoluted stuff, so therefore there was nothing really interesting about it, and it doesn't follow the same characters as the first book, which makes no sense to me. Like, the main character is vaguely in this one, but it's really about some other girl that I just don't care about. So I'm like, why would she do this? Why would the author follow a character that you don't care about for this entire book? And the plot is so boring. I don't know, just highly disappointed, and I DNF'd it, and I guess I'm not going to continue with the series even though I really liked the first book. So the next question is the biggest surprise, and I'm actually going to give 2 books for this one. So one is kind of in a good way, it was a surprise, and one is just, it's not what I expected it was going to be. The first one is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm giving this one of the biggest surprises because I came to enjoy it more, and I still think about this book, which is very rare. Usually I just move on and I'm ready to go to the next thing. But I still think about this book, even though at the time I said it was going to be my least favorite of that reading vlog that I did about where I read like 4 of the most popular contemporary kind of books. And this is not the kind of book I would ever normally read. It was very much more like family drama and had a lot more like themes and, you know, things that you could even discuss like in an English class. It had more of that kind of stuff than I expected, symbolism, you know, things like that. Like the house burning down obviously symbolizes like the family kind of falling apart, but I just didn't expect it to be like that. I just thought it was gonna be like a fun beach summer read. So I would give that biggest surprise just because it wasn't what I was expecting, and the fact that I'm still thinking about it, and that I guess I'm gonna have to read more by this author. The other biggest surprise was in a very good way, and that was Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This book, I just checked it out on a whim, only because Elle from Elliot Brooks talked about how amazing it was, and I was like, it's just some little fantasy thing. It just doesn't sound like my kind of thing. It's pretty short, but the audiobook was available, so I got it. But I was like, I'm not usually a fan of fantasy audiobooks just because I have a hard time keeping track of the characters in the world and stuff with, you know, just listening to it and not seeing it on the page. But this book was so fun. It is sort of high fantasy because, I mean, it is in another world. It's not ours, but you don't have to learn a bunch of names and places. It's just a very straightforward story, and it's not high stakes. I mean, it kind of is, but not like save the world, you know, something like that. It's more just a girl trying to help her sister. And to do that, she has to basically kill a prince, but she can't kill him. So she's got to figure out a way to do it without people knowing that she did it. So she gathers this like team of, a very mismatched team of people that wind up coming together to help her. And I didn't realize that's what the plot was going to be. And then one of the characters, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, it was also one of my favorite characters that I've read from about this year. And it was just such a surprise. It was very like funny and witty at times, while also being somewhat serious and just like heartwarming. And I heard somebody say it was like part horror. No, there's nothing scary in this book. It's more fantasy, but I don't know. I've really, really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend that you check this one out. Next question is newest favorite author, and I picked, it says, or new to, new to you. It doesn't have to be like a brand new author. But I actually have 5 on this list that I would definitely be willing to read from again that were new ones I'd never read from before. And that is, well, I put Josiah Bancroft, but I'd already read one from him, so I guess that doesn't really count. Taylor Jenkins Reid, I would read from her again. Grady Hendrix, I would read from him again because I read My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I'm going to talk about more in a minute. It was actually really enjoyable. I liked the writing style a lot. T. Kingfisher, obviously, I would read more from that author because I really enjoyed Nettle and Bone. They have a new book that just came out, What Moves the Dead, which is like a Fall of the House of Usher retelling, so I would definitely check that one out. And then Becky Chambers, because I'm reading a book by her right now, and I know she wrote some other sci-fi novels that are supposedly really good, so I will definitely check more out by her. Newest fictional crush is the next question. Nobody from this year can I think of that would be a good fictional crush. The only one I can think of would probably be Laura Carlston from the Dark Days Club. This book was just, it was way too long, and it was pretty good, but then I don't know, it really did get too long. But Laura Carlston, it seems like he's the bad guy, but he's actually, a good guy, but he's like super cool and like really powerful, and the main character kind of has this like love-hate relationship with him. And so anyway, I did enjoy his character. I'm not going to continue the series, but I have a feeling he's going to get just even cooler as we read more, so I guess it would probably be him if I had to pick. Newest favorite character is a character from Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, and that is the character called the Dust Wife. She doesn't have another name. She's basically like a witch, but she is so funny. Oh my gosh. And the audiobook narrator did such a good voice for her. So I would definitely say the Dust Wife. She was great. And once again, I highly recommend you read this book. Okay, the next question is a book that made you cry. No books made me cry. Books don't make me cry. I think I've cried one time ever. It was the 6th Harry Potter book. That's it. So, and it wasn't when Dumbledore died. I'll have to tell you the story about that some other time. The only time I've ever cried. But anyway, I would say Malibu Rising, I guess, would be the closest. It didn't make me cry, but it, gave me feelings, I guess. It made me sad in places. It definitely pulled on my heartstrings more than a lot of these other books, because you felt really bad for these kids when their dad like abandoned them to go be a famous rock star and have all these other women, and so you just really felt bad for the kids, and each of the kids have their own troubles as well, and so you can kind of see this like generational struggle that goes on, and that did actually pull on my heartstrings, I suppose, more than a lot of other books. Okay, next question is a book that made you happy, and I picked 3 for this one. One was My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. So this book made me happy for about the first half. So I'll say the first 50% made me very happy. It was very just like 80s and fun, like a Stranger Things vibe before it gets dark and stuff. So it was about friendship and music. They talk about like each chapter is a song title from the 80s. There's a playlist that goes with it on Spotify. It was really fun. Now then it gets serious and obviously a little bit scary because yes, her best friend is possessed. And it ends a little sadder than I expected. I mean, it's still somewhat of a happy ending, of course, because you would know it was going to be when the tone was so happy for the first half of the book. But the first half definitely made me super happy. I was a little conflicted at the end just because I was like, well, I'm kind of sad now. I'm kind of just left feeling strange at the end of this book. But anyway, first half. Also, what made me happy is the last 5%. I mean, more of the book too, but especially the last 5% of Project Hail Mary. I absolutely loved the last 5% of this book. It was perfect. It was pretty much worth reading the entire book just to read the ending. And I just loved the ending so much that when I was reading it, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read another book now. It got me so excited about reading because I wanted to find that same feeling where I was like, oh, what a good ending. That makes me so happy. So just giving me that feeling and wanting to find another book that gave me that feeling, I definitely have to give this book some credit. And the other book I just have to briefly mention is a book I'm reading right now, which is A Song for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I'm not quite done, but it's super, super short, but I'm almost done. And this little book's just making me happy too. It's so weird, and it's just fun about a little monk and a little robot that live in another world that, is sci-fi, and they're hanging out together and traveling, and it's just super cute. We have 2 questions left. The next question is the most beautiful book you've bought or received this year, and I know I bought a lot of books this year. I think this one, the one I'm gonna give as the answer, technically I bought at the end of last year, I think. But I found it used at Half Price Books for actually a really, really good price to be a giant hardback. And that is Upon a Burning Throne by Ashok K. Baker. Ashok K. Baker, there we go. The first book in the Burnt Empire saga. And I've not read this book yet. This is probably why. It's absolutely massive. Plus, look at the font. Super, super tiny font. Tons of words per page. And it's gonna take me a long time to read this book. It is like 650 pages. So there we go. But I absolutely love these colors together. This is like one of my favorite colors, like a teal color. And it's so pretty with the sword and the snake and the nighttime sky. And oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So it's, you know, it makes you realize it's definitely an epic. And I will definitely be hopefully reading and enjoying this entire series. And the last question is books you need to read by the end of the year. There are a ton, obviously. I've got like 300 books on my to-be-read list on Goodreads, but I picked 5 for this video that I know for sure I'm going to read by the end of this year. The one that I'm probably going to start very, very soon is The Hod King. Well, obviously the Ballad of Perilous Graves as well, because I literally have it. But The Hod King, the 3rd book in the Sinlin of Sins, Books of Babel is what the series is called. Books of Babel series, because I loved the 2nd one so much, and people say the 3rd one is even better. I can't even imagine that. So I have really high hopes, which hopefully does not disappoint me. And then I'll probably read the 4th one in this book as well, called The Fall of Babel, but I hear it's not as good. So another one I'm for sure going to read, because it's a library book, public library book that I checked out, is Kingdom Keepers #2, Disney at Dawn. I read the first, what's it called? Disney, I already forgot the name of it. The first Kingdom Keepers book. Oh, Disney After Dark. Yeah, I read this one as like an ebook, and it was a fun little romp if you really like, you know, Disney World. I mean, just a little middle grade, and this one's set at like Animal Kingdom, I think. So just getting to sort of relive going to the parks is fun. So I'm gonna read this just for a fun little summer thing. I'm also gonna read Last Chance Books by Kelsey Rodkey, because I was so disappointed in Book Lovers. Oh my gosh, Ella's scratching at the door. Sorry if you hear her. I was really disappointed in Book Lovers by Emily Henry, because it's not the plot I thought it was gonna be. It wasn't really that much about books, but this is young adult, but it's more of what I want, about like 2 different bookstore owners. One's a chain bookstore and one's like a little family-owned bookstore that's musty, that's been owned, you know, in her family for generations, and the 2 of them now are on like the same block together or something, or right across the street from each other. So obviously it's going to be like an enemies to lovers kind of romance, and it just sounds really fun, and this is what I wanted from Book Lovers, so I'm definitely going to read this one this summer. A book I'm for sure going to read this fall is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I was gifted this at Christmas time by my sister-in-law, and boy, the font is tiny, and this book is compact. I think it's gonna take a lot longer than it looks. It's like 500 pages of, wow, the pages are so thin. It's like truly paper thin, but like you can see the other words through the page there. Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna read this because it's such a classic in dark academia, and I have realized, and I'm going to probably do a reading vlog on it, like as an experiment, that some of the dark academia, I've not actually read that much of it, but the stuff I have read is not my favorite. And I'm like, do I even like dark academia? I don't even know. So I might do an experiment where I read some of the most popular ones and see if I actually like it or not, or what's going on. But anyway, it sounds like something I would definitely like. I mean, I loved the vibe of it. So anyway, I'm gonna read this as an experiment around Halloween time. And the last book that I definitely am gonna read this year at some point is Gallant by V.E. Schwab, just because V.E. Schwab is now going to be one of my auto-buy authors, as people say, because I loved A Darker Shade of Magic. We won't talk about the second 2 in that series. And I loved Vicious and Vengeful. And those are the only books I've read by V.E. Schwab so far. I've got some of her young adult books to read as well, but, and this one's young adult too, Gallant, but this one is her new release, and it just sounds really cool. And I've never read any of her young adult stuff, so I'm going to be trying this probably very, very soon. I'm probably gonna order it for the library, so I'll probably just read our library's copy, but that is a high priority on my list for the year. So I've read 34 books this year, which is crazy. It's only, you know, exactly halfway through the year, and I'm almost done with 2 more right now, which will put me at about 36 for the first half of the year, which is mind-blowing, because my goal was just to read like 26 books, because I would thought 1 every 2 weeks, but audiobooks have definitely been my friend for sure, and the fact that I'm off during the summer. So let me know in the comments down below if you guys have read any of these books. Did you enjoy these books or what? So I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.